Today, we step deeper into Operation 1 Ignition Point. We are still inside Campaign 2, Forged in Fire, and this mission takes us to a point that many people reach, but not everyone accepts. Because the Forge is not only about the heat, it is not only about the pressure, and it definitely is not only about the fire, sparks, and the sound of metal under stress. The Forge only works when the metal stops fighting the hand of the smith. That is the heart of this mission. Now, Mission 1 brought us into the heat. We confronted the truth that comfort does not equal maturity, and that spiritual strength is not formed in a climate controlled condition. Mission 2 exposed false power, the shortcuts, borrowed strength, the artificial boosts that make people look strong while leaving them hollow underneath. In our last mission, Mission 3 helped us recognize the first signs that God is already at work: conviction, disruption, holy discomfort, and awakened hunger. But now comes Mission 4, First Strike: submission to the process. This is the moment where the metal meets the hammer, or the hammer meets the metal. Depends on how you look at it. Not every strike is punishment, right? Not every pressure point is rejection. Not every hard moment means God is angry, absent, or finished with you. Sometimes the first decisive strike is not God trying to destroy you, it is God beginning to shape you. And that is where many people pull back. They enter the fire, but they refuse the form. They feel the conviction, but they resist the correction. They sense God calling them deeper, but they keep negotiating the terms. And they say they want transformation, but they still want to stay in control of the process. But surrender does not work that way. You cannot be forged while staying in command of the hammer. You cannot be shaped while refusing the grip of the smith. You cannot become what God is forming while constantly trying to preserve what He is trying to refine. That is why this mission is not only about entering the fire, it is about yielding to what God intends to do there. There is a difference between being near the forge and submitting to the forge. And there is definitely a difference between experiencing pressure and letting pressure produce information. And there is a difference between being uncomfortable and being surrendered. Some people suffer and only become bitter. Some people are corrected and only become more defensive. Some people feel the weight of God's hand and immediately start looking for the escape hatch. But the disciple learns to ask a better question. He does not look at, how do I get out of this as fast as possible? The good question that a good disciple asks is, Lord, what are you forming in me while I am here? And that question changes everything. Because when God brings you into a process, His goal is not to entertain your old patterns. His goal is not to decorate your disobedience. His goal is not to preserve every piece of you that keeps resisting Him. His goal is to make you more like Christ. And Christ likeness does not happen by accident. It happens through surrender, as Romans chapter 12, verses 1 and 2 says. I appeal to you, therefore, brothers, by the mercies of God, to present your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God, which is your spiritual worship. Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind, that by testing you may discern what is the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect. And we've worked on this passage before, and that passage gives us the operational posture for this whole mission. Present yourself, do not conform, be transformed, discern the will of God. That's not passive religion. That is not surface level church attendance. That is full body surrender: mind, heart, habits, priorities, motives, desires, reactions, ambitions, and decisions, all placed before God. It is the moment where the believer stops saying, God, bless what I already planned, and start saying, God, reshape what I have been building without you. That is first strike. The first strike is the first decisive yes to God's process. And it's not a vague yes, it's not an emotional yes during a powerful moment and then a silent no when obedience becomes inconvenient. It's not a yes that only applies as long as God agrees with your timeline. A real yes, a surrendered yes, a yes that places your life on the anvil and trusts the hand of the one holding the hammer. And crew, that kind of yes is costly. It costs control, pride. It costs the fantasy that spiritual maturity can happen without correction. It costs the illusion that you can follow Jesus while still reserving veto power over everything that makes you uncomfortable. But that yes is also where real formation begins. In the forge, metal has potential before it has shape. It may be strong in composition, valuable in substance, and capable of becoming something useful. But raw potential is not the same as finished purpose. A blade does not become battle ready simply because the metal exists. Armor does not become protective simply because the ore was extracted. A tool does not become useful simply because the material has value. The material must be worked. It must be heated, it must be positioned, struck, folded, corrected, aligned, tempered. The metal does not get to decide every angle. The metal does not dictate the number of strikes. The metal does not interrupt the smith and say, that part is enough. Work on something else. I prefer a softer process. The metal is not the designer. The smith is. And that image gives us one of the clearest spiritual truths in this campaign. God is not merely improving the version of you that you already prefer. He is forming you according to his purpose. And we read this in Isaiah 64:8. But now, O Lord, you are our Father. We are the clay, and you are our potter. We are all the work of your hand. That is a foundational surrender verse for this mission. God is the potter. We are the clay. He is the one with authority, wisdom, design, and purpose. We are the work in his hand. Now, the image there is clay rather than metal, I understand, but the truth transfers perfectly into the forge. The material does not outrank the maker. The created thing does not have greater wisdom than the creator. The unfinished vessel does not see the final design more clearly than the one forming it. That is where submission begins. Submission begins when we stop acting like our limited perspective should have command authority over God's eternal wisdom. And that is hard. Believe me, it really is, because we are used to making ourselves the tactical center of the room. We assess based on what we feel. We evaluate based on what we prefer. We judge God's process by whether it matches our expectations. If something hurts, we assume it must be wrong. If something takes longer than we wanted, we assume God must be delayed. If something challenges us, we assume we are being attacked rather than formed. But the first strike teaches us this: the hand that wounds your pride may be the same hand healing your soul. The pressure you resent may be the pressure God uses to expose what you could not stay hidden. The correction you resist may be the mercy that keeps you from drifting further. The delay you despise may be the protection that keeps immature character from carrying mature responsibility too soon. God does not waste the process, but we often fight it because we want the outcome without the shaping. We want the patience without waiting. We want humility without being humbled. We want courage without opposition. We want wisdom without correction. We want spiritual authority without submission. We want endurance without pressure. We want deeper faith without needing to trust God beyond what we can control. But a faith that never submits to the process remains soft in the places that need strength. That is why the first strike always matters, because the first strike is where God begins to confront the part of us that still believes we can follow him while managing him. That sounds intense, but it's true. Many people do not reject God outright. They just keep editing his instructions. They want God's presence, but not his authority. They want comfort, but not correction. They want promise, but not the process. They want spiritual language, but not surrendered obedience. And eventually, God's hand reaches the place that we've been protecting, the place where pride lives, place where fear makes decisions, where bitterness has been justified, where compromise has been renamed balance. It's the place where delayed obedience has been disguised as wisdom, the place where we keep saying, I'm praying about it, when the truth is, God has already spoken. That is when the hammer falls, not to crush us, but to shape us. Hebrews 12:5-7 puts it a bit differently. And have you forgotten the exhortation that addresses you as sons? My son, do not regard lightly the discipline of the Lord, nor be weary when reproved by him. For the Lord disciplines the one he loves, and chastises every son whom he receives. It is for discipline that you have to endure. God is treating you as sons, for what son is there there whom his father does not discipline? If you are left without discipline, in which all have participated, then you are illegitimate children and not sons. Besides, we have had earthly fathers who disciplined us, and we respected them. Shall we not much more be subject to Father of spirits and live? For they disciplined us for a short time, as it seemed best to them. But he disciplines us for our good, that we may share his holiness. For the moment, all discipline seems painful rather than pleasant, but later it yields the peaceful fruit of righteousness to those who have been trained by it. I know that passage is definitely not easy, but it is necessary. God's discipline is not evidence that we have been abandoned. It is evidence that we are loved as children. Discipline is not pleasant in the moment, and it yields the peaceful fruit of righteousness to those who have been trained by it, right? Have you noticed that the best disciplined people on the planet are highly successful, well maintained, have a focus, have a purpose? As I said, that phrase matters. We will say it again, trained by it. Not merely exposed by it, annoyed by it, forced to endure it. We are trained by it. That means the process does not automatically produce maturity in everyone, right? We see that on YouTube, Rumble, whatever you want. Social media is full of it. But the same pressure that trains one person may harden another. The same correction that humbles one disciple may offend another. The same delay that produces endurance in one believer may produce resentment in someone else. The difference is submission. The surrendered discipline lets God train them through, excuse me, this surrendered disciple lets God train them through the process. The resistant person only complains about the process. So the question becomes, are we being trained or are we only being frustrated? Because frustration by itself does not form Christ-like character. Pressure by itself does not guarantee maturity. Hardship does not make someone holy. The difference is whether we submit to God inside it. A forge can shape metal, but only when the metal remains in the process long enough to be formed. That is where many believers step off the anvil too early. They feel the heat and call it unfair. They feel the first strike and call it rejection. They feel conviction and call it condemnation. They feel correction and call it attack. They feel God pressing on old habits and call it too much. But what if too much is actually the place where self-reliance finally runs out? What if the pressure is not proof that God is against you, but proof that he is serious about forming you? What if the thing you keep rebuking as an obstacle is actually the instrument God is using to produce obedience, humility, and trust? Crew, that does not mean every painful thing is automatically good. Sin is real. Evil is real. Brokenness is real. The enemy attacks, people wound, systems fail, life hits hard. We do not pretend every fire came directly from God's hand. But we also do not believe any fire is beyond God's authority. God can use what he did not cause. God can redeem what tried to ruin you. God can form endurance where the enemy intended exhaustion. God can produce holiness where your flesh only wanted escape. But the formation requires surrender. And as we move deeper, we have to ask a sharper question. What does surrender actually look like when the process does not match our preferences? Surrender is easy to sing about when nothing is being challenged. We go to church having a great day and we listen to the worship songs, and it's like, oh, this is just easy to sing. They're talking about surrender, not an issue for me. It's easy to say, God, have your way, when his way appears to match our way. It's easy to say, Lord, I trust you, when the map is clear, the resources are visible, the emotions are stable, and the next step feels manageable. But biblical surrender is proven when control is removed. That is when faith leaves theory and enters the field. Because trust is not merely revealed when everything makes sense. Trust is revealed when obedience remains even while understanding is incomplete. As it says in Psalm 37, verses 5 through 7, commit your way to the Lord, trust in him, and he will act. He will bring forth your righteousness as the light and your justice as the noonday. Be still before the Lord and wait patiently for him. Fret not yourself over the one who prospers in his way, over the man who carries out evil devices. That passage gives us a clear surrender posture. Commit your way to the Lord. Trust him. Be still before him. Wait patiently for him. That is not spiritual passivity. That is disciplined trust when control is removed. It is the disciple saying, Lord, I am not abandoning responsibility, but I am surrendering command authority. That does not say, trust the Lord only after he explains every variable. It does not say, lean on your own understanding until God proves the process is safe. It does not say, acknowledge him in the areas where you already agree. It says, all your heart, not your leftover trust, not your partial compliance, not the edited section of your life where God is allowed to speak but not allowed to command. All your heart. And that directly confronts the way many of us handle the process of formation. We say we trust God, but we still lean hard on our own understanding, right? We say we surrender, but we keep one hand on the emergency override. We say we want his will, but we keep presenting him with pre-approved options. We say we are following Jesus, but we keep trying to route around the places where obedience gets expensive. That's not full surrender. That is controlled cooperation. Controlled cooperation says, God, I will obey as long as I understand. Surrender says, God, I will obey because I trust you. You know it's controlled cooperation when you go, God, I will follow as long as the process protects my comfort. But if you surrender, you're really saying, God, shape me even where comfort has been commanding me. If we look at control cooperation also, it says, God, I will change as long as I get to choose the area. But a surrendered heart says, search the whole ship, no locked rooms. And controlled cooperation says, God, I will say yes after you guarantee me the outcome. Surrender says, my yes belongs to you before I see the outcome. That is the difference. And this is where the Forge theme becomes personal, even without personal stories. Because every disciple eventually faces the moment where God's presence and process challenges their preferred version of discipleship. Maybe he confronts the way we speak when we are frustrated. Probably he'll expose how much of our identity has been tied to being impressive. He'll possibly reveal that our generosity has conditions. And maybe he'll show us that our forgiveness have limits we refuse to admit. Maybe he'll maybe he presses on the entertainment habits, relationships, thought patterns, and ambitions that we have been pulling our hearts away from him. And when that happens, we often do not feel spiritual at first. We feel defensive. We start explaining. We start justifying. We start complaining. We say, at least I'm not like that person. Or we say, this is just how I am. God understands my heart, while ignoring that God is the one exposing the heart. We can say, I need peace about it, when what we really mean is, I want obedience to feel less costly before I obey. But as I said, surrender requires us to stop weaponizing spiritual language against spiritual formation. There is a version of Christian language that sounds faithful, but is actually resistance in disguise. And maybe many of you have heard this one. Okay. I'm waiting on the Lord can sometimes mean I'm avoiding the instruction he already gave me. Or have you heard this one? I just need more discernment, which can sometimes mean I'm delaying obedience because I do not like the answer. Another person could always say, I don't feel led. What they really mean is probably my comfort did not approve of this mission. Or how about I'm protecting my peace, where really what they mean is I'm refusing correction. Now, there are real times to wait, no doubt. There are real times to discern. There are real times to protect peace from chaos and manipulation, no doubt. But we must be honest before God. We cannot use holy vocabulary to hide the unsurrendered will, because the forge reveals what language can conceal. Under pressure, motives surface, pride reacts under correction, impatience speaks when under delay. Under uncertainty, control issues show themselves. Under discipline, the difference between trust and preference becomes visible. And that is mercy. God brings things to the surface so they can be healed, corrected, and reshaped. And the process may feel like exposure, but exposure before God is not the same as humiliation. When God exposes something, he is not surprised by it. He is inviting us to surrender it. I mean, Jeremiah chapter 18, verses 1 through 6 says, the word that came to Jeremiah from the Lord, arise and go down to the potter's house, and there I will let you hear my words. So I went down to the potter's house, and there he was working at his wheel. And the wheel he was making of clay was spoiled in the potter's hand, and he reworked it into another vessel, as it seemed good to the potter to do. Then the word of the Lord came to me, O house of Israel, can I not do with you as this potter has done? Declares the Lord. Behold, like the clay in the potter's hand, so are you in my hand, O house of Israel. That picture there, the picture of the potter's house, is very powerful here. The vessel is spoiled in the potter's hand, and the potter reworks it into another vessel as it seems good to him. It's not abandonment, that's reformation. The clay does not get thrown away just because it needs reworking. That is the good news for anyone who feels like the process has revealed weakness, immaturity, or areas of resistance. God is not shocked by the shape you are in. Far from it. He is not confused by what needs to be changed. And he is not pacing heaven wondering whether he can still work with you. The question is not whether God is able to form you. The question is whether you will remain in his hands. Because the potter's hands is where reworking happens. The smith's hand is where forging happens. The shepherd's hand is where leading happens. The father's hand is where discipline happens. And the safest place for the unfinished disciple is not away from God's process. It is submitted inside God's hand. And that is where trust becomes practical. Trust says, Lord, I do not understand every strike, but I trust your hand. Or how about, Lord, I do not like what this exposes, but I will not hide it from you. Trust basically says, Lord, I wanted a faster route, but I will not outrank your wisdom. Trust also says, Lord, I feel the cost of obedience, but I know you are better than any or even my resistance. Trust is not pretending the fire is comfortable. Trust is believing the smith is good. Surrender does not require fake emotions. You do not have to pretend correction is easy. You do not have to pretend the process is painless. You do not have to pretend you instantly understand why God is leading you through a certain season. Biblical surrender is not emotional denial, it is obedient trust. And Jesus himself shows us this in Luke chapter 22, verses 39 to 46. And he came out and went, as was his custom, to the Mount of Olives, and the disciples followed him. And when he came on to the place, he said to them, Pray that you may not enter into temptation. And he withdrew from them about a stone's throw, and knelt down and prayed, saying, Father, if you are willing, remove this cup from me. Nevertheless, not my will, but yours be done. And there appeared to him an angel from heaven, strengthening him. And being in agony, he prayed even more earnestly, and his sweat became like great drops of blood falling down to the ground. And when he rose from prayer, he came to the disciples and found them sleeping for sorrow. And he said to them, Why are you sleeping? Rise and pray that you may not enter into temptation. In Gethsemane, Jesus does not model shallow surrender. He does not pretend the cup is easy. He does not offer a polished religious performance. He prays in agony. And yet he submits to the Father's will, right? Not my will, but yours be done. That is surrender at the deepest level. And because Jesus is not merely our example, but our Savior, we do not look at his surrender as something we imitate in our own strength. We look to him as the one who surrendered perfectly where we have resisted repeatedly. We receive his grace, we follow his path, we yield under his lordship. The Christian life is not try harder to be more spiritual. It is belong fully to Christ and let his spirit form you into his likeness. But that formation still requires our yes. And that brings us to the center of this mission, the first decisive yes. There is always a moment where surrender becomes specific. It cannot stay theoretical forever. A vague yes does not reshape a life. A vague yes can sound powerful in the moment, but it evaporates when obedience requires a decision. The first decisive yes is different. It is not a mood, it is not a slogan, it's not a temporary surge of spiritual energy. The first decisive yes is the moment where we stop negotiating with God over the next act of obedience. It is where we say, Lord, I will follow you here. Not everywhere in theory, here in reality. Here in the habit, here in the attitude, in this relationship, in this calling, in this apology, in this act of forgiveness, in this decision to stop hiding. Here in this choice to obey before the emotions catch up. The first decisive yes breaks the old command structure. Before surrender, self sits in the command chair. Self decides what is reasonable. Self decides what is too costly, decides which scriptures are convenient, decides which convictions count. The self decides how far obedience has to go. But when Jesus calls someone to follow him, he doesn't offer an advisory role. He calls for lordship, as is stated in Luke chapter 9, verses 23 and 24. And he said to all, If anyone would come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross daily and follow me. For whoever would save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake will save it. Deny yourself, take up the cross daily, follow me. We have said this before, but now it has greater meaning. This is not soft language. It's not casual spirituality. It's not Jesus adding a religious accessory to an otherwise self-directed life. It is a full command transfer. Deny yourself does not mean hate yourself as someone made in God's image. It means refuse to let the self ruled life remain in charge. It means the old command center loses authority. It means comfort cannot be supreme commander, pride cannot be the fleet commander, fear cannot be operations officer, appetite cannot set the mission plan, convenience cannot issue the final orders. Jesus is Lord. And if Jesus is Lord, then surrender is not optional equipment, it is core discipleship. That is why the first decisive yes matters so much. Until there is a real yes, we keep treating obedience as something we will eventually consider. But delayed surrender is still resistance. That sentence may hit hard, but it is necessary. Delayed surrender is still resistance. If God is calling us to obey and we keep postponing that obedience indefinitely, we should not rename that maturity. We should not call it caution if the real issue is fear. We should not call it wisdom if the real issue is pride, or call it discernment if the real issue is control. There is a point where not yet becomes no, and the forge confronts that. The first strike is not only God shaping us, it is God revealing the decision point, the questions we need to ask to discern what the forge is doing are first, will we submit or will we keep circling the same conviction? Will we trust or will we keep demanding guarantees? Will we obey or will we keep asking God to bless our delay? This is where 1 Samuel chapter 15, verses 22 to 23 gives us one of the clearest warnings about partial obedience. And Samuel said, "Has the Lord as great delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices as in obeying the voice of the Lord? Behold, to obey is better than sacrifice, and to listen than the fat of rams. For rebellion is as the sin of divination, and presumption is as iniquity and idolatry. Because you have rejected the word of the Lord, he has also rejected you from being king." Obedience, submission. These things matter to God. Saul tried to dress disobedience in religious language, but God saw the truth. Sacrifice could not cover rebellion, and religious activity could not excuse a resistant heart. That warning is still relevant today. We fill our lives with Christian looking activity while still refusing the specific obedience God is calling for. We can listen to the sermons, share verses, attend streams, talk about faith, and still resist the one area God keeps pressing on. God is not impressed by spiritual noise that covers an unsurrendered will. He wants obedience, not because he's cruel, not because he's insecure, not because he needs to prove our worth. He wants obedience because obedience is the pathway of love, trust, and life under his rule. Jesus said it plainly in Luke chapter 6, verse 46. "Why do you call me Lord and not do what I tell you?" That question cuts straight through religious language. If we call Jesus Lord, then obedience cannot remain optional. Lordship is not a title we attach to Jesus while keeping command authority for ourselves. If he is Lord, then his word carries weight. His instruction outranks our performance. His command stands above our comfort. That means the first decisive yet is not legalism. It is lordship made visible. Legalism tries to earn God's acceptance through performance. Surrender responds to God's grace with obedience. Legalism says, "I obey so God will love me." Surrender says, "Because God has loved me in Christ, I now belong to him." Those are not the same. The gospel does not produce self-salvation projects. The gospel produces surrendered disciples. We do not submit to God's process to make ourselves acceptable. We submit because in Christ we have been claimed, forgiven, made new, and brought under the living authority of the King. So when God calls for obedience, he's not trying to rob us of life. He is leading us into life. But the old self does not believe that easily. The old self hears surrender and thinks loss. The flesh hears obedience and thinks restriction. Pride hears correction and thinks insult. Fear hears trust and thinks danger. Control hears submission and thinks death. And in one sense, control is right. Something does have to die. Not the image of God in you, not the gifts God gave you, not your personality, not your holy desires, not the redeemed calling God is forming, but the self ruled life has to die. The version of us that insists on being Lord cannot survive faithful discipleship. The version of us that says Jesus can save me, but he cannot command me, has to be brought to the cross. The version of us that wants resurrection without crucifixion has misunderstood the way of Christ. I have been crucified with Christ. It is no longer I who live, but Christ who lives in me. And the life I now live in the flesh, I live by faith in the Son of God who loved me and gave himself for me. That's not a decorative verse. That is discipleship identity. I have been crucified with Christ. The old command structure has been judged. It is no longer I who live, but Christ who lives in me. The center has changed. The life I now live in the flesh, I live by faith in the Son of God. The outgoing life is trust. Who loved me and gave himself for me. The foundation is grace. Submission is not emptying your life into nothing. It is handling your life to the one who loved you and gave himself for you. That is why the first decisive yes is safe, even when it's costly. The one who is calling you to surrender is the one who went to the cross for you. The one shaping you is the one who bore your sin. The one correcting you is the one who rose from the grave. The one asking you for trust is the one who has already proven his love. So when God presses on an area of resistance, he is not acting like an enemy. He is acting like a father. He is calling you to release what is deforming you. He is not being harsh. He is being merciful. He is bringing the hammer down on pride, fear, bitterness, compromise, and self-reliance. He is not destroying your future. He is refusing to let those things define you. The first decisive yes breaks the old command structure so Christ can rule the whole life. And that leads us to the practical side of the mission. What does submission to the process actually look like for this week? Not just a sermon moment. Submission to the process is not proven by one emotional moment. It is practiced throughout repeated obedience. That is why the title is First Strike, not Final Strike. The first decisive yes matters, but it's not the end of formation. It is beginning of the yielding formation. Once the metal submits to the hand of the smith, the process continues. Heating continues, striking continues, shaping continues, cooling and tempering continue. The first yes opens the door, but daily surrender keeps us in the process. That is where many believers struggle. We want a single moment to replace a surrendered life, but we want one powerful prayer to remove the need for daily obedience. We want one breakthrough to eliminate the need for ongoing formation. Discipleship is daily, though. Jesus said, take up your cross daily. That means surrender has a rhythm. It is not merely a past event, it is a present posture. So, the practical command for this segment is simple: stay on the anvil. Do not jump off when the process touches something sensitive. Do not run when correction becomes specific. Do not disengage when God starts dealing with patterns you would rather protect. Do not confuse discomfort with danger or assume resistance means you're not ready. Often, resistance means God has reached the place that needs surrender. Staying on the anvil means remaining available to God's shaping hand. It means praying honestly instead of hiding, confessing specifically instead of generalizing, obeying the next instruction instead of demanding the whole mat. It means receiving correction without immediately building a defense case or letting trusted spiritual accountability speak into your blind spots. It means choosing scripture over impulse, prayer over panic, obedience over delay, trust over control. Psalm 37:5 demands, commit your way to the Lord, trust in him, and he will act. That is not a call to passivity. It is a call to surrendered commitment. Place your way before the Lord and trust the route to him. Let him act according to his wisdom. But commitment to the Lord must be concrete. So let us name several places where submission to the process usually becomes real. First, submission becomes real in correction. And we talk about this constantly, but this is a real issue here. For most people, like encouragement, fewer people receive correction well, but correction is part of formation. If every word that challenges us feels like an attack, we stay immature. If every confrontation with sin becomes a debate, we will stay stuck. If every spiritual warning gets filtered through pride, we will miss mercy. Proverbs 12:1 says, whoever loves discipline loves knowledge, but he who hates reproof is stupid. That is blunt language, but it is needed. I love this verse because it's simple. It has great simplicity. Wisdom receives discipline. A teachable spirit is not weakness, it is forge readiness. The person who can be corrected can be formed. The person who refuses correction protects their weakness from healing. Submission asks, Lord, what are you showing me? Before it asks, how do I defend myself? Second, submission becomes real in timing. God's process rarely obeys our preferred schedule. We want quick upgrades. God forms deep roots. We want instant clarity. God teaches us trust. We want the finished blade. God works the metal. A rushed process can produce fragile outcomes. There are things God forms slowly because they must be strong enough to carry weight later. Character cannot be microwaved. Humility can't be speed runned. I mean, Ecclesiastes 3:11 explains that spiritual endurance cannot be downloaded like a patch file. He has made everything beautiful in its time. Also, he has put eternity into man's heart, yet so that he cannot find out what God has done from the beginning to the end. God makes everything beautiful in its time, not always in our time, not always on our demand. It's his time. Lord, you know, submission says, Lord, I will not despise your pace. Third, submission becomes real in hidden obedience. Not all formation is public. In fact, much of the most important formation happens where no one applauds. Private obedience matters, hidden faithfulness matters. The decisions no one sees are still visible to God. The forge not only shapes what others notice, it shapes what God sees. Colossians 3:23-24 reminds us, whatever you do, work heartily as for the Lord and not for men, knowing that from the Lord you will receive the inheritance as your reward. You are serving the Lord Christ. I love this one because whatever you do, work heartily. That applies beyond jobs and tasks. That applies to the posture of discipleship. We obey before God, but not merely for visibility. Submission says, Lord, I will obey even when no one is watching. And fourth, submission becomes real in releasing the old shape. Metal cannot become a blade while insisting on remaining a lump of ore. Clay cannot become a vessel while refusing the potter's pressure. A disciple cannot be formed while clinging to every old pattern. There are things God will ask of us to release because they cannot travel into the next stage of obedience. Not everything familiar is faithful. Not everything comfortable is clean. Not everything we prefer is aligned. Some things we have to be surrendered, not because they are obviously dramatic, but because they are quietly deforming us. Paul in Ephesians chapter 4 verses 22 to 24 writes, to put off your old self, which belongs to your former matter of life and is corrupt through deceitful desires, and to be renewed in the spirit of your minds, and to put on the new self, created after the likeness of God in true righteousness and holiness. Put off your old self, be renewed, put on the new self. That is formation language. That is process language. That is surrender language. Submission says, Lord, I will not keep wearing what you told me to put off. Fifth, submission becomes real in obedience before full emotional agreement. Sometimes the feelings follow the yes, not always before it. If we wait until obedience feels easy, we may never obey. If we wait until surrender feels exciting, we may be stuck. If we wait until trust feels effortless, we may keep circling the same mountain. Again, Paul writes in 2 Corinthians 5:7 that faith does not require emotional numbness. Faith does mean emotions do not have the final authority. For we walk by faith, not by sight. That also means we walk by faith, not by mood, not by impulse, not by fear, not by the strongest emotion in the room. Here, submission says, Lord, my feelings are real, but they are not Lord. You are. And that may be one of the most important lines in this mission. My feelings are real, but they are not Lord. Fear is real, but it's not the Lord over me. Frustration is real, but it's not the Lord over me. Grief is real. Confusion is real. Desire is real. Comfort is real, but it is not the Lord over me. Jesus is Lord. And because Jesus is Lord, we stay on the anvil. Not because the process is easy, not because we understand every strike, not because we never feel the heat. We stay because the smith is good, the purpose is holy, and the outcome belongs to God, as it says in Philippians 1:6. And I am sure of this, that he who began a good work in you will bring it to completion at the day of Jesus Christ. That that verse gives us hope without removing the process. God began the work. God continues the work. God will complete the work. But the work is still work, and our posture inside that work matters. So, when the first strike lands, do not retreat into old resistance. Do not panic. Do not assume God is done with you because he is dealing with you. Do not confuse his shaping hand with rejection. Say yes, a real yes, a specific yes, a surrendered yes. Lord, I submit to your process. Lord, I trust your hand. Lord, I yield to what you are forming. Lord, I will obey here. That is the mission. That is the first strike. So, crew, as always, we will close as we close out this briefing. Here are your nav points for the week. So, first, identify the exact place where God has been calling for surrender, not in vague spiritual language, but in a specific area of obedience. Do not hide behind general phrases. Name the point of resistance. Is it pride, fear, control, bitterness, compromise, delayed obedience, hidden sin, a habit, a relationship, a calling, or a decision you keep postponing? Bring that before the Lord with honesty. Second, stop treating discomfort as automatic proof that something is wrong. Ask whether the discomfort is actually conviction, correction, or formation. The forge is not comfortable, but comfort is not the standard of God's will. Let the Lord teach you the difference between harm that should be resisted and holy pressure that should be received. And third, give God a specific yes this week. Not a general yes, not a someday yes, a specific yes. If he is calling you to apologize, apologize. If he's calling you to stop something, stop. If he has called you to begin something, begin. If he has called you to confess, if he has called you to forgive, take the next obedient step. The first decisive yes breaks the old command structure. Fourth, remain teachable under correction. Do not immediately defend, explain, compare, or deflect. Ask God for a heart that can receive discipline, wisdom, and redirection without rebellion. The disciple who can be corrected can be formed. And finally, our fifth waypoint is commit the process to the Lord and stay on the anvil. Do not run when the shaping becomes specific. Do not jump off because the first strike exposed something tender. Trust the smith, trust his hand, trust his timing, trust his purpose. So, crew, the first strike is not the end of the story. It is the sound of formation beginning. And as we close this mission, we are also closing Operation 1, Ignition Point. This operation has been about the beginning of the burn. We entered the heat. We exposed the false power. We recognized the kindling signs of God's refining work. And now, in this final mission, we have reached the decisive moment where the first real yes must be given. Because ignition is not the same as formation. A spark can start a fire, but the fire still has to do its work. Heat can awaken what God is beginning, but surrender determines whether we remain available to what God intends to form. The first strike lands here, but it does not finish the blade. It starts the shaping. That is why we did this mission. When metal meets the hammer, something decisive happens. The old shape starts to lose its authority. The raw material begins moving towards purpose. The forge stops being only an environment and becomes a process. And that's where we are as a crew. God is not merely inviting us to stand near the fire and talk about transformation. He is calling us to submit to the process that actually forms it. And that means surrender. And not shallow surrender, not religious surrender, not the kind of surrender that says yes during the mission briefing and no when obedience becomes inconvenient. Real surrender, specific surrender, the kind that hands God the kind that hands God the locked rooms, the defended habits, the delayed obedience, the pride protected places, the fear driven decisions. Because the forge only works when the metal stops fighting the hand of the smith. And the good news is this: the smith is not careless. God does not strike randomly. He does not shape cruelly. He does not expose to shame his children. His disciplines, he disciplines because he loves. He corrects us because he is faithful. He forms us because he has purpose for us. He calls for surrender because the self-ruled life cannot produce Christ-like maturity. So do not fear the hand that holds the hammer. Fear the version of life where you remain unformed because you kept resisting the hand of God. Fear the comfort that leaves you shallow. Fear the pride that totally refuses correction. Fear the delay that becomes disobedience. Fear the false peace that is really spiritual avoidance. Fear the old command structure that keeps saying, I know better than God. But do not fear surrender. Surrender to God is not defeat, it is alignment. It is the moment the created life returns to the Creator's hand. It is the moment the disciple stops negotiating and starts following. It is the moment the metal stops resisting and begins becoming what the smith intended. And crew, that brings us to what comes next. Because after ignition comes the crucible. So Operation 2, the crucible is where the pressure intensifies, not for destruction, but for revelation. Pressure reveals what comfort kept hidden. This next operation will take us into exposure, diagnosis, the truth-telling before God. The fire has been lit. The first strike has landed. Now the question becomes, what will the pressure reveal? The crucible is not about pretending we are stronger than we are. It is about letting God show us what is actually there. The motives behind the behavior, the fear behind the hesitation, the wounds beneath the reaction, the compromises beneath the excuses, the places where comfort kept things hidden, and pressure finally brings them into the light. That may sound intense, but it is mercy. Because God does not expose what he is unwilling to heal. He does not diagnose what he is unwilling to restore. He does not bring truth into the open so he can abandon us there. He brings truth into the open because lies cannot be refined. Hidden things cannot be surrendered. Unnamed resistance cannot be submitted in the process. So as we close Operation One Ignition Point, do not walk away from the fire. Do not step back from the anvil. Do not treat this as the end of the campaign. The ignition point has brought us here. The first decisive yes now begins. And that yes will carry us into the crucible where God will keep revealing, refining, correcting, and forming what comfort could never expose. So when the first strike lands, do not run. When conviction presses in, do not hide. When correction exposes what needs to change, do not harden. When God calls for the next yes, do not delay. Submit to the process, trust the hand of the smith, and let God form in you what comfort could never produce. Because the fire is not the enemy when God is the one doing the forging. The strike does not end when God is the one shaping the blade. And surrender is not weakness when Jesus is Lord. So, crew, stay aligned, stay humble, stay on mission. And as I said, Operation One Ignition Point is complete. The forge is active. The smith is working. And next week, we enter Operation 2, the Crucible. All right. Welcome to everybody. Oh, give me a second. That's a little loud even for me. There we go. All right. Sorry. It's a little loud in my ears. Well, as I said, new setup. We are on a Linux system, so you might see things. Oh, excellent. No, you can't go wrong with that. That's nice. So, yeah, I'm just getting over the cold here. Oh, well, let's see what we got out of it. Let's see. Hey, Bert. Yeah, just what I need, a birthday blaster. Well, I'm already at beyond level 20. Let's see. Oh, I'll take that any day. We may not be here all the time. One thing I will tell you is I am working on a new system. So it's gonna take a little while for me to get used to the stuff because it's not the same. It's not the same configurations or anything. So let's see. There we go. So I'm using this time instead of a standard mouse, it's a trackball. So if you see a little wonkiness go on, understand that. Yeah, no, it's not that. Yeah, you know what? So we need to get over to here. Yes, please. All right, so we need to go. Actually, well, it says we have to go that way. And as always, I have to make the reminder that for all that is said and done, answer so. So this way. So let's go that way. See how this works out for us. So yeah, I mean today's hopefully everybody understood that today's message, I know it was a long one. Seriously, I I do apologize. I really do. It's not something I enjoy. Um oh, we can't go any further. Oh, that's right. We can't go any further. All right. So, well, this is going to be fun. Oh, there we go. All right. Well, while we're here, we might as well be. All right. Let's go into this instance, shall we? Digging up answers. All right. Excuse me. Mm. Well, I think we shall. So we got to search. Well, that doesn't help us. Boy, that comes back quickly. Yep, here we go. Hey, for all of you who have started following us today, thank you. You're awesome. Oh, that's always good. Okay. Back to the Black Citadel for the debrief. Hmm. That's fascinating. Maybe I should do that. Hmm. Well, is it over at the Yep, it is. So as usual, a little technical issue doesn't hurt anybody. Come on. There we go. Ah, that's a possibility. Always a possibility. Sorry. That's a good question. So let's see. Uh, do we go with? Hmm. Hmm. If we go with this, we'll probably have to. Oof. Oof. This is going to be a little bit here. You know what? We'll go with this one. All right. Do I look like a dashing rarg? So all these are really masks. Frosty. Uh, I'll accept that. And there we go. We've leveled up. Select my reward. Mm-hmm. condition damage always works out. Well, let's see. First, let's see what goodies we have that we can actually get rid of, and we can't. Pants! Well, you can't go wrong with better pants. Definitely a lot better there. And of course, boy, do I look good. Let's see. Soulbound. Soulbound. All right. That's funny. Yeah, couldn't even. All right, so you know where we're going. Looks like several other people have got wind that there's some good things to do. And they've got their stuff to do. All right, let's go and get rid of this lot before anything else. And there's a person who just got hopped up in a little there. Got that nice boost for speed. Oh, well, let's first take care of something else. And hopefully my keyboard doesn't keep screwing up like it's doing. So one thing I do dislike about this new setup I've got. Alright, sell my items. That's not too bad. It's just a soft touch. No, I think I need... Oh, forget that. You know, I'm going to regret selling this, but you know what? Ooh, well, that's definitely nice. And of course, the Vigorous Iron Mace. Alright. Take all that. Now let's go over to this guy here, and we do the usuals. I don't need armor. Sell my junk. And yes, I'm going to sell that because everybody goes, oh, don't sell it. Yeah, sell it. I don't need it now, and I've got an inventory too full. So it's kind of like, no. All right, where do we need to go from here? Well, back to this. Come on, there. Let's see. All right, so where to next? Oh, all the way over here? Easiest way to get is just to go up from here and head south, I think. I believe that would be working very well. Again, what do I know? I have no clue what's going on. Taproots. Ooh. A Dredge Retnik. And a bit of Hassenpfeffer there. Hmm. And there we are. Let's enter and hopefully don't get killed for this. Here we go. Oh boy. All right. Boop. I like it when it delays, but that's okay. I gotta get back to my skills of. All right. Okay, the other way. Come on, there we go. Yeah, I know the feeling. No, they're just choosing not to raise or rise up. Oh, jeez. You know my favorites. Well, that's not fun. All right. All right, there we go. I'm getting used to this new setup. Getting there. Well, I'm going to say we need to be... Well, wake up. Ooh, this looks like a job for... Out of range? Come on, come on. Well, we got him pinned down at least. That's a good thing, I guess, but man. And there we go. Took long. Well. Mm-hmm. Okay. We'll get out of the instance and right to where we need to be. uh, let's see. There we go. Ugh. Sometimes you just... I'll spend the money. We made a killing off of the last stuff, so there we go. So yeah, like I said, I'm working off of trackball, so it's a little wonky here. Oh, hello, everybody's here. Friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ear. Of course they do. Hmm. 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 Sometimes that's all we need is someone we can trust. uh, you know what? I like stealth. Some stealth. Well, that's nice. Yeah. Mm. We had it. Excuse me. Choice. Well, let's see. Eh. So basically, that just changes. we're gonna we're gonna do what we always do. We're gonna sell it. It's like I'm not giving up. You know. Well, let's look at it from a point of view. So it's like I get more precision. Basically, it's precision power swaps. It to me, it just does nothing. Let's see what we can do. Yes, and if you're wondering why, yes, the keyboard is the issue, and it's the connection to the new system. So we're working on that one. That one's the new one we're working on. So first things first. Like I said, if there isn't a glitch in something, you can't just say, "Oh yeah, it all works out very well." It has to be perfect. No, I don't want perfection. Sometimes it's more fun. Come on. Now, can we sell things? No, we can't sell any of it. Oh, well, that's okay. I don't need armor. Just need to sell. All right, that's taken care of. So, what is showing the Order of Whispers' effort to destroy the Dragon Crystal? All right, so where is that? So there's Lion Arch. It's way the heck over here, huh? Well, been in that area. Uh, just why is it always that they have a suspicious barrel? Don't be suspicious, as the song goes. Hello. Well, you know what? Since I'm here and you're here, I want to lay it on land, my dear friend. Okay. Well, we need to go this way anyway, so. Sorry, I just Saw an ent in the distance and thought it was majestic. See an oak heart. Can't say that was awful. All right, so everybody knows I hate. With the passion of 1,000 burning suns, I hate it. All right, so we just got to go across. All right. Hey, you got to make sure. Good map always works. So hopefully once we get through this one, here we go. Oh, they've come to me. Here we go. As usual. Well, we've got me. All right. There we go. Well, it's up there. Either way, it's going to be the long way around. Yeah, this is like, oof. All right. Come on. And again. Well, he does not look good. I don't trust Hal not raising anybody else out of this. Well, ew. Well, at least she has spunk. I hate spunk. See how our map is. Alright, so yeah. Right where we need to be. Where everybody else is. Oh, there is somebody. Yeah, everybody doesn't like me. Let them come. Come one, come all. Yeah, I didn't think so. Knew you wouldn't like that. Well, at this stage, uh, all right. There we go. Uh, and this is why. I'm going to say it's in that cave. Like I said. There we go. No. There we go. Ugh. Horrible. Horrible. There we go. Just a bit. Okay, that does happen. True. Excellent. All right. Well, we are going to take our next break because we can. All right, so be back in about who knows? Let's get to Lion's Arch first, because we have our marching orders for next round. So anyway, here we go. So we're going to take our next 15-minute break. So be back here at about 20 after the hour, and we'll see you then. right, we are back. Whoa, where am I? What happened? Yeah, you do one thing. There we go. I hope. Uh, there we are. Yes. You try everything to fix things, and it's like one after the other. Anyway, that being said, let's get back. So, well, that was nice, beautiful. So, find somebody that is selling apples. I have often walked down the street before, but I've never done it packing heat before. Yes, heaven forbid my keyboard actually it doesn't want me to do something. Everybody can bother me, it's just do I want to be bothered? Oh, you're going to do that now. There we go. I look out of place, don't I? It is beautiful, you have to admit. All right, so let's see. Oh, yeah. Ew, wow. Uh, wow. There's a person who's just so excited. It's like, oh, wow. I don't want to greet anybody. I want to get up there. Well, it looks like you go up this way. There. Well. When in doubt. And the funny thing is I would fall off right off the bat. Right there. Hmm. Imagine pouring that bad boy into a pot. Yes, I do love lobster. My tastes are a little extravagant. And some people will say I just like certain things. I do like certain things, like food and such things. And apples. Apples? Are you selling? No. No. I remember where they are. I just can't remember immediately. Let's see. What do you got for me? Oh, I forgot to change that out. Yeah. All right. I'll take the pants. Thank you. And an amulet? You just can't go wrong. Oh. I do have conditional damage on that. Ooh. Precision always works out well. Definitely. I like that one. All right. No. Let's see, is it soul? If it's... I think I can... No. And that's the best you can do. All right. I love it. Always go find the person who is selling apples. And where would that person be, my friend? Oh, wait a minute. Yeah. All right, there's a point up there. Now, how to get up there? You may ask. Well, you may ask, but will we figure it out? Never. Oh, look. Shall we do it the hard way? Yes, we'll do it the hard way. There we go. Yes, I'm on a mission to find pretty much the vistas here. Quite nice. All right. It's not bored. All right, so there's somebody selling apples, apparently. No. Somebody said, all right. Let's see. Well, there's something you don't see every day, Chauncey. Ugh, man. Plus, this helps me in developing my driving skills. Well, make up your mind. This thing is just like, go here, go here, go here, go here. There it is. All right. So let's cruise the byways and see what we can see. And if we find somebody who's actually selling apples here, let me know. Because sometimes I can miss out on seeing anything. Well, there's a name for somebody. A scary lemonade. All right. So, what are we up to now? Okay. So that's that area. We've done all that. Fort Mariner. I think. Let's see. Well, that would be the person I'm looking for. Right in freaking front of me, you know? Well, maybe. Well, that doesn't help me. The vaults. Well, while we're at it. Actually, I think it's at the fort. Come on. Gotta love my keyboard. Yeah, I never had this problem with my other keyboard. Only with you. Come on. So apparently all this is stuff I really don't want to get involved with. Yeah. Don't want to get involved here yet. Well, you know, while I'm here, might as well. Come on. There we go, keyboard. Yeah, that's it. Well, not yet. We're not ready for that yet. Kind of like the music though. Plus, every so often you just need a good explorer, you know? Just go exploring. Hmm. I got most of this area. Some other POIs. Ugh. Alright, this is just absolutely bungling me. Yes, I'm gonna have to go to the wiki. Let's see, uh, let's see. Oh, I can't do it until then. Well, that would do it. Yes, I know, little one. Calm it down. All right. Well, we are here. No, I'll help folks out here. So let's see. Oh, Milton Brooklyn problem. Motivate lazy farmers. Exterminate grubs. Let's see. Suspicious. Destroy what? Oh. Aw, he's disgruntled. Don't care. Oh, hello. Yeah, you not you're now motivated, sir, huh? And there you go. All right. Anybody? Anybody? Bueller? Bueller? Well, we get rid of the grubs. I mean, seriously. Wow, they're just now they're giving a lot of stuff. Ew. You have rapid attacks. So do I. And let's see. Well, hmm. You popped up right next to my guy, man. So don't whine to me when all of a sudden it's like, oh, there we go. Ooh, there's a vista? There is. So how to get up there is the next question. No, this is definitely not the street where you live. I've often walked down the street before. The fangs. Alright, so we got all that. Where to next? Oh, somebody over there. Alright, well, let's head over there. Hmm. A light bag of booty. Butter. Oh, well, I missed that. How could I have missed that? Well, really simple. I wasn't looking dapper enough, I guess. Ooh. What do I have? Longbows. Yes, I do. I'll take the conditional damage any day. And we can get rid of that one. Of course. A little bit of that. Yeah, I still have better stuff. Yeah, can't use that, of course. All right. Whoa, hello. No, I guess that wasn't smart just to do business here. Oh well. Live and learn, as they say. Well, definitely. How are we going to do this? Well, let's go over and get that one waypoint and go from there. Come on. Ah, really, guys? Did I get anything out of it? No, of course not. Spiders, of course, spiders. Well, let's just go around the other way. Come on. Well, it's not something you see every day. Oh, you know what? That's soulbound. Well, that's that. And where was that? In the plaza. No, not there. I think it's... Yeah, it's right there. Nearest place is right there. So, we'll come back to that. Oh, I do have an unused upgrade spot. Oh. Well, that would do it. Let's see. Precision power. Okay. Let's just go with all of the above. What, anything else? No? I've got everything. Crazy. Well, not everything. All right. Let's head to the Black Lion Trading Company. And there we go. Where everybody comes to All right. No, can't use. 6. A little bit better. Not too bad. Now we're not getting rid of that. All right, so let's sort this out. So let's see. I don't need armor. Oh. No, I don't need that either. So really, I don't have much. Uh. Alright, Leprechaun. I gotta put that back. There we go. I can't sell. Well, let's see. Actually, let's make sure of that. So, cooking station, artificing, huntsman, jeweling, tailoring. I believe it's a tailoring. No, armor smithing. I think I can get rid of. Let's see. You in there. I know a lot of stuff, don't I? Let's get all the crafting stuff out of the way at least. Come on. There we go. Nope. Alright. Now let's head to our vault. Because heavens forbid we actually can, you know. Alright. Now we gotta find the... in all of... There we go. No, somebody's happy. No, thank you. Do I have anything else? No. Only have 2 of those. Well, what is it, lady? All my materials. Okay. Everybody does, but do they really? Okay. Organize. Let's get out of here. All right. So where are we next? All right. So we're taking care of business up here. Yeah. Ugh. I know. Kinda all over the place. As we stealthily move closer. Big gooperfish. There we go. All right, so according to what we need to do, get back at Pirates for York. All right. Uh, well, okay. I guess we didn't have much of a choice here. Let's see. Wow. Oh, hello. Yeah, sometimes you just need, you have a need. You have a need for speed. All right, well, that's not too bad. Let's see what happened. Okay, you know, we also got the chicken out of there. Let's see. We have jackdaw pirates. Well, you know, color me happy on that one. More. Hmm. Let's see how many more people I can cheese off. Well, the crab's part of it. Oh, no. Oh, I'll let them take care of that while I go through this. Okay. Well, that just levels me up a bit more. I can live with that. Plus, I'm looking dashing. Well, that explains a few things. Oh, I'll get out of here. Oh, must be a Forrest Tucker. Well, that was brilliant. All right, that's it. Take out the turret and done. Got a chest out of it too. I can live with that. All right, now it's time. Lots of crap. All right, so claim from the Wily Palace stolen treasure. Big group fish. Oh, really? There we go. There we go. Yeah. Oh, I know. I've been playing for 2 hours. And always is a fun time. It may not sound like it, but I am having fun. Don't think I'm not. Well, there you go, small person. You can do all you want, but... Well, that doesn't help. There we go. Thank you. No. Hmm. There we go. Oh, that's a lot of sheep. Oh, would help if I did that too. Yeah, thank you. Not picking up a shovel. It is. Are you kidding me? All right. No, thank you. No peg legs. Mm-hmm. Oh well. Wasn't even doing the event anyway, so really didn't matter. Well, got something out of it. Uh. Ooh, I get something out of it? Lovely. But I want something out of this guy here. You're the type of person I need to get something from. Ow. Yeah. One more. I just need one more. There it is. Oh, you're not gonna like me. Yeah. All right. Get that. Anything else? Anybody? Ooh. Over here. We have ever there. Well, we already did that, I think. Bridge. Not too many scouts in this area. Well, that kind of will do it. Actually, I think what we'll do is we'll head over here. Actually, get on the freaking and head over there. Actually, do something productive later. But yeah, we're going to be taking a break here for the most part. Well, guess that's all that. And I think that'll just take care of itself. Oh. Ah. Yeah, they were dumb enough to go that route. Well, sniper left. Sometimes it just works out very well. Well, that took care of that. Yeah, well. And here comes the next round of crazy people. All right. Ugh. Come on. All right, we'll worry about that in a minute. What do I do if I see a pirate? Oh, just shoot. All right. Well, that being taken care of. All right. Well, we'll just come in here. Let's see what we got. Let's see. Yeah, stuff we can't use. And there we go. All right. So let's just. Well, let's see. Did we. The estate has a. Come on. There we go. Yeah, the estate does. So we'll just come back here. But we need to go here. No. We need to go here because I want to pick up my cash and do all that. And then what we'll do is we'll actually end it here for the evening. And next week will be Black Desert Online. So that, let's see. That's all fun and games until somebody, forgets to do stuff. All right. Let's see now. Let's see. Well, let's sell some items here. That's not too bad. All right, strong hide boots. Nearly double. Got 3 of them. Ooh. Somebody desperately wants those. All right, well, we'll take all that and go from here. And that will end us for this evening. Thank you for joining us. Oh, there's someone with the extra life. Excellent. Good to see. But anyway, that's it for us this evening. Thank you for joining us. Next week, like I said, Black Desert Online will be our game, and we also start our next operation. It's Operation 2 of the Crucible. Let's see how we can get through that. So, without much ado, and thank you for joining me again. This is Pastor Brandon, your Fleet Commander, signing off.